you get to travel around with Anthony Robbins or someone for
Right.
2 years, attending all these events and living with him and seeing what happens behind the scenes. And so that really just embedded the whole sort of day-to-day living of Ayurveda and sort of the pulse. And it was a beautiful time, yeah.
And Mark, did that give you then obviously the stepping stone into what you do now in terms of working with businesses and giving lectures? And did you learn, because that's a unique skill, I think, because people can, understand the practice and the tradition of it, but then to actually get that 2-year window where you learn how to deliver it at a group level and at a really profound level that people get and get excited about, that gets you the popularity, was pretty important, and I gather fortunate for you to have that exposure.
Oh, it was absolutely profound, and yeah, I'm forever grateful for it. And I think it comes back to that point you were making earlier about even with meditation, that people can sense there's some benefit to it, but their lives are so busy. How do they stop and actually do it? And it's the same with health and Ayurveda. And so my skill I guess I've developed is just making things simple enough that people can do, because, as you're alluding to, it doesn't matter how profound some wisdom is or knowledge, if people can't apply it and do it practically in their day while they've got their 3 and 4 kids and busy jobs and all the rest of it, then it's pointless. So yeah, it was really just trying to chunk things down into manageable pieces that they could make small changes to their life and get the benefits from them.
Can you, and I'm going through this at the moment, I think we all do, can you try to explain or put into words how hard or how much work's involved in taking book after book and seminar after seminar of knowledge and then being able to chunk that down into a palatable form that someone gets and seems really simple, but people might think that you've only got a base knowledge of it, but you've actually got so much behind there that you've had to get rid of to get it to this raw state that you're going to get. Like, can you explain how that process works for you?
It's a beautiful question, and it's something that I've always done naturally, and it's basically getting the underlying tenets, I guess, and it's like that. The analogy I was thinking of when you were describing that is the iceberg. We see the tip of the iceberg, but underneath there's this whole thing that we're not even aware of, and that's the beauty, I think, of Ayurveda, because it instills that into us naturally, that Ayurveda is the knowledge or the understanding of the laws of nature that structure life. And so really there's only a handful of fundamental laws that we as humans need to live in tune with. And so what happens in the West, because we come from the other direction through our microscopes and our scientific studies, it's like we see all the isolated variables of health. There's a million things in terms of diet and the latest vitamins and the latest coenzyme Q10, and then in exercise there's everything about heart rates, and then there's sleep apps, whereas Ayurveda sees like the roots of the tree. There's your dharma, your purpose in life. There is consciousness, enlivening that. There is emotional health, and there's living in tune with nature, the seasons and the daily cycles in terms of when you eat, when you sleep. Beyond that, it's 90% done. And so we complicate things in the West, and what the Eastern tradition, and that's what people experience when they go to the Eastern countries. You go to Malaysia or Vietnam or Laos, and people just have a very simple life. It's not complicated, and they're in tune with nature more, and that's where I think makes the whole thing simpler.
Why is that happening in the Western culture especially? Like, why is it so consuming and confusing? Is it because there's money to be made with the confusion, so the companies want to confuse us? I see this happening a lot, in nutrition, where there's studies coming out on the benefits of eggs, or there's this and that, but the studies then, if you look deeply, they're actually then being funded by the egg company to hold the study, to raise more confusion. And then people don't know what to choose, and then they just think, oh, well, stuff it, I'll just go back to what I was doing anyway, and sugar tastes good, so I'm just going to do that more and more. And they don't find the simplicity to sustain the simplicity, I mean.
Yeah. It's really central to our whole, again, the dichotomy between East and West. And I certainly don't want to sound as if I'm not going into bat for Western culture. There's some amazing things we do, and our science is fantastic, and aspects of modern medicine are terrific. But I think we also do miss the true wisdoms of life. And I think it's fundamentally based on we're living in an economic-dominated world where finances and economic wealth are seen as the correlates of success. So it makes sense that we want to make money and companies want to make money. But the ultimate question is, does that lead to a happier individual and happier communities and a happier world? And probably not, unless we've got the balance. And I think we're seeing the seeds of things turning around and coming back to appreciating the more simple Eastern ways of life, and we're starting to see through some of the science that maybe is there for vested interests and skimming over the top of some of the more ancient wisdoms that I think will come back into fashion in the next few years. How
important do you think, me having, I've got 5 kids and young kids, but how important is it for parents to connect their kids to nature at this point in time where devices have never been more popular, time spent indoors has never been more often, and I was just reading articles the other week where bike sales for kids has dropped significantly. Kids don't ride their bikes. That we can't fall in love with what we don't know, and if the kids don't know about nature and don't explore it to its full potential, their love and care for it's going to diminish.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean this seriously. I often think of you and the role you play as a parent when I'm talking to groups, because I know how much you connect your family with nature, and obviously being down in such a beautiful part of the world. And it is just, it's so profound. I think one example is earthing, because people do want science. It's all very well to say, should have our kids out in nature and, sun and fresh air and da-da. But you've also mentioned this idea of technology, and the impact that technology has on younger brains is really profound. As adults, we don't appreciate that because, the brain doesn't really fully mature till around 25 years of age, most science suggests. So a young brain that's 12 years old or 16-year-old, the impact of technology and potentially even the radiation from technology may be even more severe than for us as adults. But the research now coming out on earthing, and for those that don't know, earthing is simply the practice of taking one's shoes and socks off and standing on the ground occasionally, because of course in our modern wisdom of sleeping on elevated beds, working in high-rise buildings, and even when we walk on the ground, we wear the best insulators known to mankind, plastic and rubber-soled shoes. And so many, many people actually are disconnected from the earth. And what they're showing, the science, is that when we stand on the ground, it actually literally creates a shield effect. You think of a little aura or a protective shield coming around the body, and that's protecting, the science is showing, protects us from low-level frequency radiation from household appliances, but also the suggestion is that it could well even do the same for high-level frequencies from Wi-Fi and mobile phones and all that sort of thing. And so it's this coming together of East and West, and it's something so simple. Does it take any more time out of your day to, you're having lunch outside, to take your shoes and socks off, or you're on a holiday, instead of walking on the asphalt escarpment at the beach, you take the shoes and socks off and you walk on the wet sand. And so kids, when left to their own devices, and this is the key thing, when we can disconnect them from the technology, they, more than adults, will naturally connect to those sources
Yeah. And I can 100%, I've got a 2-year-old girl and we'll put her in the backyard. And within 10 minutes, she's hidden her shoes and socks and she's walking around with bare feet and we can't find the shoes and socks if we've got them on her. And one thing that's really interesting is, we've got a gravel driveway. They're big rocks. Most adults can't walk barefoot on those rocks because they get sore feet. And she will walk up and down them all day without a whimper because she's become so used to the feeling, and she loves it. Yeah. And she doesn't get sick. Again, because I think this connection she's got, she's built up a real immune system because she's a lot more connected to nature.
Absolutely. Yeah. And immunity is such a big thing in our world today. The immune systems are just shot. We know a lot about gut flora now, and we think gut flora is all about taking our pills from the...
What's your thoughts on the gut, the microbiome and the gut flora?
Oh, I totally agree with it. The connection between, brain and gut and the importance of gut flora. Probably my only query or different view is that, like anything, and you're pointing about it before, the idea to maximize our gut flora is not to go to the chemist and be drowning ourselves in probiotics in a pill. It's proper food, understanding of digestion. Thousands of years ago, the Ayurvedic rishis, they were called, they're the seers that could actually cognize the laws of nature and how the body's designed to function in tune with Mother Nature. They spoke about Agni and basically the gut microbiome, but in different language. And it's just about real foods, Yogurts, what traditionally were known as lassi, providing the bacteria and the probiotics, and being connected to nature, being out in nature and walking on the ground and having fresh air and drinking fresh running water. It's just all about balance, really. And that's where this idea of simplicity comes in. When we live according to how Mother Nature designed us to live, we don't have to get caught up into all the details about, am I having the right probiotic for this, and am I got an alkaline diet, and am I low GI, and am I low carb, and I'm analysing. We just overanalyze everything and forget to live.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I think it's like, I was reading a book around the microbiome, and the takeaways was it's like eat clean, live dirty. It's like, the importance of also, if you don't have a shower, it's actually not a bad thing because it's building up immunity as well. And if we shampoo ourselves every single day and we wash our hair every day, we're actually cleaning off a lot of the good stuff out of our body constantly, and being dirty is actually not a bad thing. And my kids remind me of that every night when it's bath time, and they're like, let's eat clean, live dirty, Dad. Let's not worry about it. And it's it's interesting. I want to talk. Okay, so you catch up with these people for the 2 years. After that, what's your next steps? Like, what year are we talking, and how far away is the book from that concept?
Yeah, so that basically ended in 2000. So I've been traveling in Australia, and I thought, it just felt like a bit of a move. So I moved to Sydney, and my initial thought was very much around coaching, one-on-one Ayurvedic consulting, which was great. I really enjoyed the connection with people personally, but particularly in Sydney, you can spend your whole day and see two people. By the time you drove over the bridge and saw one person and came back and found a park, and everything was so expensive. After a couple of years, I realized that my dharma, I use this word dharma, it's that sort of your bigger purpose in life, I guess, was more to get the word out to more people rather than just a few people in a sort of more condensed way. So I then transitioned more into the speaking world, doing seminars, conferences, and the whole brief was really the best of East and West. And that was the idea, not to poo-poo Western science, not at all, but just to have the ancient wisdoms of health and well-being as the foundation, and then to back them up with sort of credible Western science. So the seminars were really good, and then that transitioned into writing the book about 5 years later. Took me about 3 years to put it all together, and 2010 she was born.
Were you a natural writer?